Yom Slicha Umechila. It is the day where we marvel in the joy of Ki Bayom Hazeh Yichaper Aleichem.
I have two questions. One is maybe a cynical one. Somebody's fasted and fasted years and years and years and years and years, and at some point they say, why? Why? Some people give up, and they can't take facile answers. And can you address that?
I could
Somebody
try.
who's down in the, okay.
I could try, if I understand the question correctly. I think that many people in life unfortunately give up at a certain point. And if they would just understand that the answer often is right after the point where they give up. If people want immediate answers, they want immediate replies, it's not necessarily what's being taught in our tradition. But I do recommend, in fact, I think we once discussed this aspect of Yom Kippur. It's very interesting that you asked that, because in the prophetic reading, which is read in all of the synagogue throughout the world on Yom Kippur morning, we read from Isaiah 58, and the question that the people ask, I don't think it's a cynical question, is your question. Lama tzamnu v'lo ra'ita, ininu nafshenu v'lo teida. They ask God through the prophet, why do we fast? We don't seem to feel responses to the fast days. Your question. And the entire chapter there, or at least part of the chapter, is dedicated to the theme of trying to explain that if they really understood what a fast day is, if they understood the real messages, then maybe the responses would be more immediately at hand. That's one of the possible readings. I recommend to the people who didn't yet get their response that maybe Isaiah 58 should be one of the readings. And if I may, offer my blessing that I hope this should be the year when they see the positive responses immediately after their sincere effort. It's not a cynical question, it's a good question.
One other question. Can you tell me what you remember as your first fast? Did it bring out did you have any wisdom at that point, or what happened?
I was, thank God, brought up in the house of a great rabbi in Rebbetzin, and I was brought in from my earliest childhood memories. I was in the synagogue. I think, as soon as I started to walk, I was there already. And part of the struggle as a little boy was I always wanted to show that we could fast already. Abba, Ima, I'm strong enough. And it was only after a certain point that they allowed us, to try to express the fact that we can really fast. A few more hours. So I don't remember the age, but I don't think it was necessarily the spiritual delight of purification that I felt as a young child. I think it was much more the fact that I was able to demonstrate to my dear Abba and Ima that, you see, I went through a whole Yom Kippur without eating and drinking. That was probably my earliest experience of fasting.
When was that, maybe?
Maybe when I was 11, maybe something along those lines, because earlier than that, we always had to end the fast at a certain point. Maybe it's dangerous, maybe it's too much to ask of a child. But I think that over the years, when someone gets involved in a certain practice and you learn to appreciate the depth perception behind the concepts, you learn to expand your understanding and consciousness involved in those areas.
And again, in simplest terms, what is the purpose of the fast? Okay, the Muslims fast part-time, others fast, we fast as Jews. What's the purpose of our fast in a word?
Well, I think that there are many aspects. It's multifaceted. I think on one level, it's a way of dedicating oneself to values other than just physical pursuits. Maybe it's a day to connect to spiritual pursuits and therefore limit physical intake. It's a form perhaps of repentance, of maybe soul cleaning, The same way some fasts are dedicated to different forms of purifying the impurities of the body on a physical level, maybe certain kinds of spiritual levels are reached by fasting. We discussed, last time we discussed Yom Kippur, we spoke about how fasting on Yom Kippur, on all fast days, is supposed to sensitize us to all the people who are always fasting. Maybe we're supposed to learn more of a level of empathy for the people that every day for them is Yom Kippur. Maybe when we observe,
or what happened in the Shoah.
right? Sure.
Yeah.
So maybe when we have the break fast end to the fast day, we're more sensitive to the people. It could be that, according to the Torah, a form of atonement is gained through this very pursuit of fasting. And it could be that we, through a form of limiting our intake, it's a form of self-sacrifice connected to the highest pursuits of connection to God. Something along those lines would be the first steps of understanding, I think.
And when the Mashiach comes, do we still fast?
It would seem that Yom Kippur fast, there are different kinds of fast days. What I was trying to say, I don't know if I was successful in expressing it.
I was far back from the camera. I didn't hear it.
You probably can see it on YouTube. This is the head of YouTube. What I was trying to say.
Rosh YouTube, yeah.
What I was trying to say.
Remembered.
What I was trying to say was that people often err in the two kinds of fast days. That there are a series of fast days connected to destruction of the temple, connected to sadness, and those fast days in the days of Mashiach will be removed. I'll tell you one teaching. There are some communities where they start Shabbat early. Even if, let's say, sunset in certain places is at 8 o'clock, so they're already into Shabbat, at 7 o'clock or earlier even. It's called accepting an early Shabbat. Yeah. So many places they do that for convenience. They don't want to eat too late. But I once read in a certain Kabbalistic work that maybe when we start Shabbat early, so that's a form of a prayer to God, saying something along the lines of, Mashiach is Shabbat, that's the Shabbat, the day, the complete Shabbat, the Yom Shekulo Shabbat, the Olam Shekulo Shabbat. God, even if you have a certain set time when the Shabbat is supposed to begin, when Mashiach is supposed to happen, in the merit of us starting Shabbat early, could you please start your Shabbat early as well? And so we're hoping for Mashiach right now.
What is this? Spotlights over.
I remember last year when we were shooting, we were right across the street from where they were doing kapara, and you had an objection to it, and a lot of people do, and I don't know. I heard in New York City, for instance, there's a push by the animal rights groups to ban it because it's cruel and the chickens aren't fed and et cetera, and you expressed a certain dissatisfaction with it as well, or can you explain that a little bit?
I think that so many pursuits of righteousness can be in the category of Yisharim Darchei Hashem. The prophet spoke, I believe it was the prophet Hosea, who spoke about how the ways of God are straightforward. Tzadikim yelchu bam, the righteous walk in them. Uposheim yikashlu bam, and the sinners stumble in them. Any pursuit, if indeed there is symbolic meaning in trying to, with sensitivity and with gentility, offer the chickens that are used for kaparot to institutions for the poor. Then they don't just slaughter them; they slaughter them, and then they donate them for charity, and they donate for orphanages, for yeshivot, for public institutions, for public charity. So there's a way of doing it in the proper way, as a way of doing it in the improper way. I'm not going to speak against kaparot in a general way, but I think that whatever is being done should be done within the same system of halakha, within the same system of Jewish law and consciousness. There are laws, not just about kaparot. There are laws of sensitivity to the chickens, and laws of sensitivity to tsar, balei hayim, etc. And I think we have to find the all-encompassing system where one of my favorite texts in the Torah is tzedek tzedek tirdof. Righteousness, righteousness shall you pursue. And the obvious question is, doesn't have to say it twice, tzedek, tzedek tirdof. So according to one school of thought, the explanation is, yes, you should pursue righteousness. But even when you're pursuing righteousness, make sure that you're pursuing it righteously. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. So for those people who feel that the proper way of kaparot is with chickens, so let them do that, but let them do that with a tzedek, tzedek consciousness, not just a tzedek tirdof. Shalom tova. Yom Slicha Umehila. It is the day where we marvel in the joy of Ki Bayom Hazeh Yichaper Aleichem.
A sincere thank you. 30,000+ people have watched the videos. Of course, repeat watchers are great. Thousands of people from around the world. South America, Europe, Iceland, South Africa, Germany, Asia, Australia. Every continent has been represented. If